Neil, you grew up mixed heritage at a time when the pejorative term half caste was still used. Can you talk about the psychology of mixed heritage from a personal point of view?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few components to it, and one of the most important ones is knowing your identity. So, because my father had come over to Britain and he had a not very brilliant time of it in India. So when he arrived here, he didn't want to bring his roots with him,
Okay.
and so he didn't give me anything, nothing, language, didn't talk about family members, just wanted a complete fresh start. So that didn't help me in terms of what was to happen later when I got the racist treatment. Because if you get racism and you've got somehow got pride in your heritage, you know who you are, then at least you can sleep easy at night. But not knowing who you are is really difficult because it goes into a void, really. So I think my white British mother, they never talked about race and racism, even though National Front were kind of very active. They just didn't discuss it.
Mm.
And I suppose I would say that I wasn't very well prepared for what literally hit me. And I think that's the thing that in my children growing up, I made sure that they were prepared for everything and that they were very confident of who they were. And because they've got a Polish wife and they've got three different heritages, so
Yeah.
to speak, um, yeah, they know all about theirs and they're very well versed and understand those parts of themselves, which I didn't. So that's the first thing to say, really, which is so it has a bigger impact. What happens to you as a child if you haven't got identity,
Yeah.
um, security,
Yes.
really? And just taking a leaf out of Arcala's book. So in his book, Natives, um, he describes how his white Scottish mother realized when his father wasn't around, and is a fairly early on that happened. So she took him to Saturday school, where lots of African and Caribbean people went to take their children to become confident in their own cultures and heritages. So that's where he got his confidence and his strength.
Yes.
Um, and so it shows you what can be done if you know the right way of doing it.
Mm. Mm.
So that I think illustrates a lot about mixed heritage.
Yes.
So I think that that counts for I don't know what percentage you call it, but a big percentage of how someone charts their way through having mixed heritage in society. Obviously, other factors are who's around you. So in Brazil, which has got the largest mixed heritage population on the planet, of all coffee colours as they kind of known, um, that's an issue which is just that's who we are. And I saw a documentary way back in 2000 when mixed heritage was really big in the mid 2000s. Yasmin Alibi Brown did a fantastic book called The Color of Love, which I've
Right.
got,
Right.
and she was doing lots of articles, and there were Lewis Hamilton won the was the first black quote unquote brackets mixed heritage driver for Formula One. Obama had just become the first black brackets mixed heritage president. So 2008 was a big year,
Hmm.
and yeah, there was a lot of stuff being talked about, um, and Brazil had a whole documentary about it. So context of where you're growing up is also a big factor.
Mm.
So I was in the White Highlands, um, and in probably one of the most racist areas in the country, which it probably still is, to be honest. I
Mm.
think latently, without people going out on the streets. Um, so I think that counts for a lot in terms of your surroundings and whether you've got other mentors in your life who can carry you through.
Yes.
So other families who also have mixed heritage, children who you can relate to.
Yes.
But the books I've read by Natalie and Naomi Evans and Natalie Morris are about mixed heritage, which had come out in the last 3 or 4 years. They're brilliant. They interview people. And the ones who've had the White Highland experience are the ones who've always had biggest problems with identity. And they talk about mirroring, which is, I do relate to that. The mirror you've got is the White Highland that you're in.
Mm.
So that becomes who you are because it's who you're dealing with all the time. It's
Yes.
your norm around you. And
Yeah.
you're thinking you're like them, but they're not going to treat you like them.
Mm.
So it's a bit of a mixed psychological mess, really.
Yes.
So that's what it was interesting that it was referred to in those books
Mhm.
with the people interviewed in those contexts.
But that's
And they said they had a hell of a time because of
yes.
that.
But
And
that's
they later,
also
yeah, go on.
your experience.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
And they had recovered later because of who they'd met, because of being able to work on themselves, because of various aspects that balanced them out, I suppose.
Yes.
For
Yes.
me, going to Liverpool was that really. Going to Liverpool when I was 21. Um, and I was still, it's only about 3 years after all the hell I had at school. So it was fairly raw still. And it was the Liverpool black community who were, I'd had an awful time of it in 200 years, really. So I kind of arrived in a place where people got it.
Yes.
And the white British people around who were living there got it as well. And those are the ones who I ended up being, they're the ones who kind of offered me a lovely healing, I suppose.
How did you find them, Neil? How did you
Well,
find?
I went to church. I went to church, and
Okay.
that was the triangle of Liverpool 8. That was the churches. There was three churches: St Margaret's, the Anglican Church, Prince's Park Methodist, and St Bernard's Catholic Church, and they were on the same long street.
Okay.
And the ministers, priests, whatever you want to call them, all knew each other. It was a very ecumenical city. Everyone linked it up with each other. So there was all sorts of communities and networks and meetings and groups and things set up. It was very, very creative time. So I got involved in all of that. And it was really important for me. So
Mm.
by my mid-20s, I'd really got a lot more confidence. And then that's what led me into doing my first training stuff
Hmm.
was actually late 80s. And it was church-based. So I'd understood a lot of my heritage. I then visited India with my father and met all the 53 relatives I didn't even know the names of before then.
Wow.
So that was obviously really liberating for me to have a big gap
How,
filled
how
to the
did it,
brim.
as well as liberating, how did it feel to be among these people, this family?
Well, it was an incredible experience because this was the part of me that I just didn't have,
Yeah.
and I looked different from then. From now, I looked much more South Asian.
Yes.
Um, But obviously, I'm 6'3", and the tallest one of them was about 5'8". So and
Gosh.
I was a bit. The only people they could identify me with was Kashmiris because the Kashmiris are pale skinned because they live in the mountains,
Right.
and they've got moustaches, which I had them,
Okay.
and yeah, so I was mistaken for a Kashmiri terrorist at one stage.
But so
They nearly took me to the police station.
but so you were among your family, but actually you didn't look completely like
No,
them either.
no, of
Yeah.
course not. No. But then, it was just it was lovely to have all the family stuff, and so I still keep in touch with my cousins, and it's just really important for knowing who I was really. And
Yes.
so those waves in the 80s and early 90s were what really counted for um, my identity and confidence, and then wearing my mixed heritage kind of identity really. So throughout the 90s, it was a very yeah, early 90s anyway. very productive, and I was doing lots and lots of race equality and anti-racist work, church, social services, all sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
In terms of white Britishness, the work I'm doing in allyship is that part of me is white British heritage. So
Yes,
I think I'm relating to how white British people are looking at the world that they're looking at
yes,
I said about mirroring. So I relate to that totally. And so I feel I can help people through that in a better way than if I didn't have that experience. So it's
yes.
an interesting way of rounding things out later in my life and
Hmm.
using that in a different way. And I found it to be really positive that people find what I talk about with ease, that they seem to all, apart from very few exceptions, they really relate to it, and it kind of inspires them to do something. And that, I think, is if it was a white British person, it wouldn't have the lived experience, and if it was someone with only lived experience, they wouldn't possibly be able to relate to it as closely. They may not tell me that. They don't say it in their evaluations, but I've got a feeling that's why it's more successful for me as
Yes,
an individual.
yes, yes. I can
That's how I
completely,
feel about it.
yeah, I get that completely.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, in her book, Caste, Isabel Wilkerson talks about the arbitrary construction of human divisions and the 8 pillars of caste, the second of which is heritability, or what we look like. I
Mm.
know you've had personal experience of a change in the way you look. So, can you tell us what changed and the effect that changed had on you and how you're perceived? And also, if you've got any advice for anyone else who might have been through the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, because of a lot of work related stress and family circumstances, which was that my parents both died within 6 years of each other
Mm,
in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the combination of a lot of massive stress in my life basically triggered off alopecia, and I lost all my hair.
right.
And that was in 2006. So within 6 months, it was falling out the rate of knots, and I just lost it all and has never come back.
That must have been
So that
tough.
is, yeah, so it's a really big issue for anyone, but
Yes.
especially when, if I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize who I saw anymore.
Mm,
And that, I know for women, it's a big issue losing their hair, because the hair is so much of identity. I mean, looking at stuff online and people kind of say, "Oh, hair is me," or something. A lot of women feel that way about their hair. So Gail Porter, for example, I think was a walking miracle to deal with it the way she has, and kind of walk around without any hair. And so it took me about 5 years to get through that process, but it was and I it fell out when I was in the middle of doing race equality work.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that didn't really affect me while I was in it, but then I had a gap of, I don't know, probably about 10 years really. And I think it's since coming back online and people not just judging things by the two-dimensional flat screen like we're on at the moment.
Yes.
I think that has led to a fair amount of confusions, assumptions, and all sorts of things, which I've had to handle really. Three incidents of which have been in White Allies Network meetings. So
Do you,
yeah, um,
would you like to describe them or describe the effect they've had on you and how you did or didn't manage to handle
well,
them?
it just makes me very angry really
Mm,
that people are making huge assumptions, which is, but
mm.
the thing is that's what people do. It's psychology to make assumptions. Um, so people's instincts are like that really. They just are. And I get it, but it doesn't stop it from kind of making me, yeah, it's what's on the inside compared to what looks on the outside. And so it's,
Exactly.
you
Yes.
know, I think people with hidden disabilities probably feel the same way.
Yes.
definitely feel the same way. So
because
someone who probably with autism or ADHD, or that's not necessarily disabilities, but you know what I mean. Just
I do things that are invisible, whatever they
yeah,
are,
yeah,
or that have become invisible.
yeah.
And
People make just their
yes,
assumptions, really.
yes,
So
based on the very small thing of what we look like.
yeah, that's right. But it's big to the rest of the world and small to ourselves. I
Yes.
suppose that's the so yeah, I've kind of had moments when I've thought I don't have the same experiences walking around of potential racism. So I'm left with a really mixed dichotomy there.
Mm.
I don't want to be having racist incidents in the
No,
street. Thank you very much. It was
no.
never nice and always triggered something in me. But it means that I can escape that. But then if I escape it, what does it mean about my credentials? If
Yes,
so it's a real revolving door of
yes,
mixed emotions and psychology, really.
yes.
Um, so yeah, it's um, it's a weird one. I think nothing I can do about it, and there are other people who've probably got similar experiences, really. But I mean, Harry Belafonte, if you looked at him, he was very pale skinned from the very beginning. He was pale skinned Jamaican,
Right.
and there's a lot of pale skinned Jamaicans who have that accent and who so he went through life very well known because of his singing and his acting.
Hmm.
And he looked like me all the way through.
Mm.
So, but he had a kind of Caribbean accent, which probably was what carried him through in terms of, and he was very strong anti-racist activist
Hmm.
all the way through his 90 something years. So he's kind of one of my idols, really, because
Yes,
if you know what I mean, I relate to how he held and carried himself
yes.
very strongly. There are other people, but because yeah, I think
But are you
so.
saying
So it's
mm,
gone.
about Harry Belafonte? Are you saying that you feel that less overt racism was directed at him because he was pale?
No,
No.
no, no, I don't think so. I think it was in the USA. It's the one drop stuff, isn't it? That's all you have to have.
Mm.
No, I don't think it was less racism, but there probably was some colorism going on,
Mm. Yes.
which I know colorism is a thing that doesn't get discussed outside of um, black and brown people's kind of arenas, really.
Mm.
Generally doesn't get discussed. Um, and this sort of white passing, I suppose, which in those mixed heritage books, going back to that, which is kind of what I've remembered, the white passing element is something that they discussed with quite a few people they interviewed.
Yes.
So the paler skin you are, the more you can gain acceptance through doors. And I suppose that's the whole business of the advertising industry's cottoned on to mixed heritage being the way through that. So they tick all the boxes of not being white British, but they don't sort of go the whole hog, so to speak, of presenting, Africa or India on the screen.
Mm.
Hardly anyone from India ever gets put in advertisements
Mm.
because they reckon it doesn't sell. So I'm just
Mm.
giving a few illustrations of it,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
No, but Harry Belafonte, just because of the fact that he kept going in his persona and the way he looked, and just operated with everyone and got on with it, really.
Yes. Yeah.
And they knew him for who he was.
Yes.
I kind of got um, reconciled with it because I can't change anything.
Mm.
If my hair grew now, I wouldn't want to know what to do with it, to be honest. So that would be a bit of a weird one because in the mornings when I was working full time, I saved 45 minutes, got 45 minutes extra sleep because there was no shaving, no hair washing, no hair drying. So that's about 45 minutes worth of work.
Well, that's extremely positive of you to look at it that way.
I did.
But it does
I,
strike me as indescribably wrong. The more I, as a white person, a white woman, think about it, that we we are only ever by strangers, people we don't know, which is the majority of people in the world, taken at face value, literally
yeah, that's right.
face
Exactly
value,
right.
and it's so
Yeah.
hollow.
Very hollow, but it's what human psychology seems to be about the world over.
It does. Well, human psychology indoctrinated with racism.
Just to give you a kind of both ways round angle of this, it's the most stark experience I have had in my life, really. So, I joined the Indian Students' Society when I was at Polytechnic in Liverpool,
Hmm.
mainly because it was a chance for me to find out about my kind of heritage from them.
Yes.
And they were wonderful. I remember all their names: Anver, Bass, Farouk, and they just took me under their wing, really. They knew I was mixed heritage. I told them, why I was wanting to join it, and they just embraced me straight away. And they were wonderful. They took me to a big stick dancing event. They really went the whole way. So we went through all the way through this year, and I was at the AGM. Kind of, I don't know when it was, May or something. I was sitting at the front with them, and this guy at the back of the Indian Students' Society said, "What's this half caste guy doing in our meeting?"
What?
Yes. Oh, yes. So they stood up, like literally a millisecond after he'd said it, turned round and shouted at him and said, "Look, he's got every right to be here. He's got Indian heritage, just like you. Leave him alone." And I thought that was allyship from the other angle.
Yes.
And they lifted my spirits all, instantly, because
Ye-
that's who they were.
Yes.
And they just looked at me, gave me a hug and kind of, and I'll never forget that moment, obviously. And it was about 43 years ago, but it was really that's the only time I've experienced it the other way round.
Yes. Active allyship. That's wonderful. I'm not
But
surprised
that
you'll never forget it, but
but the whole term half caste comes from the Indian system and the way the
on the
British
caste system.
and the way the British had, in the way that slave owners, raped their
Mm,
female slaves, and that's how coffee color came into existence, really.
yes. I agree.
So the same thing happened. I'm not quite sure if it wasn't the same actually. The British Raj, administrators, they chose Indian wives, and they became the Anglo-Indian community.
Mm,
So, and they were seen as not. How can you be in a caste system when you haven't been born into it the way everyone else is? So
yes.
you're half a caste.
Yes.
So it was actually the Indian context that came into existence.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Thank you. So, next question. How do you
Hmm.
feel racist attitudes and behaviour have changed or haven't in the UK since your first racist experience?
Well, I think because of all the work that was done, Race Relations Act, um, particularly the Conservative government, sorry, the Labour government from Tony Blair's um, changes in society that he brought in with culminating in the Equality Act, but lots and lots of sanctioned kind of inclusion and diversity and acceptance of Britain being a multicultural country. So that had been going in that direction right up until 2010, even through Thatcher's years. So I suppose that says something, doesn't it?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I think that got rid of the W and P words from people's normal parlance. I think that's what happened. They were driven out, and open racism in the street, especially with the hate crime stuff. So
Mm.
again, Labour government brought that in. Gordon Brown and others brought that in, hate crime. So they basically pushed things underground, I think. I don't think they stopped what was on people's minds, but they knew they weren't going to be saying it. So I think that gave people a false sense of security around what how the whole of society had somehow changed. But
mm,
I think that some of it did quite a. I don't know what percentage you want to call it. I think looking at the Brexit vote is probably closest thing you could come to it, really. So I think half the country understood multicultural Britain, and the other half were fed up with it. So,
you're
so,
talking
so
about
to,
when it came to the Brexit vote.
yeah, yeah. By
Yeah.
2016, that was
Yes.
the outward illustration of
Mm,
what I'm talking about, which is that it
yes.
had been driven underground,
Mm,
and the whole business of as soon as June the 24th, 2016 started, that was when all the people who had always been racist, but kind of were afraid to be racist. Social media had given them a chance to do that without, having to go out into the street,
mm,
and then they were empowered to return to their racist ideas, which they always had, but then they started expressing them.
mm.
So I think that's the whole point of, the BNP had failed, but other right wing fascist type racist movements, and Farage, of course, was the touch paper that gathered it all together. So
Yes.
he and Robinson and various people, and then the conservative brown people, black and brown people, joined in later because they realised it was such a big phenomenon they were going to lose their votes. So in the end, I think that's how it's changed.
Yes.
So it had been driven by we're a white country. Why are all these immigrants coming in from Windrush, 48 through to probably the late 70s, early
Mm,
70s. That was the largest kind of migration at that point. And then, but the Polish people coming through in as many as they did, which was what, a million, I think. Um, that was a different. There was xenophobia that lit the World War II xenophobic one there, which loads and loads of white British people have got massive xenophobia
mm,
in their sort of running, coursing through their veins, really, which comes from inheritance of so many 20th century kind of and war experiences. So that and that quite complicated psychology. This, but in the end, that added to put through a few more matches into an already begin, became an inferno by the time you got to July this year. That's what that was about. So there are still lots of people who on social media are very, and as I've experienced on LinkedIn recently, I think we
yes.
had a bit of a brief thing. So there are some people who are going around with the confidence to dismantle anything to do with diversity, equality, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, and they're empowered by the likes of Trump and all sorts of other
Mm,
people and they're kind of basically wanting us to go back to about 1750.
mm,
So they're not they're empowered and they're still there and they're not going away. So that's how I would describe it as a kind of um, if you're in a safe environment with people who are in that multicultural Britain um, under the dome of it, then you've got nothing to worry about. Step out of that, things are very different, very, very different.
mm,
So that's why racist incidents on trains, public transport,
mm,
shops, they're all going to keep happening.
mm.
So, which is why the white allyship thing's so important.
Yes.
In the end, I'm giving you the main driving factor of why it's so important because as Robin DiAngelo says in her opening kind of statement in this 2018 video that I show a lot of people. In the USA, this is literally killing people.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So I would describe it here as it's
Yes.
harming people um, to a varying degree of harm.
Mm,
And and end of July, early August, that could have ended up in deaths. And it was very
Yeah.
amazing miracle that no one died. They got close to it. People's
Yes.
cars were burnt out. They were trying to invade buildings, where hotels. It got very, very close.
And houses, I think.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh yeah. All sorts of things happened.
Mm.
So, um, and I'll never forget the 20 somethings who read on social media, mainly LinkedIn, kind of South Asian Sikh community, who said, "Oh, my grandparents told me all about what it was like in the 70s when they arrived here, and I thought this was a history book until I walked out of my door today, and I realised that it's still here,
Mm.
or it's back, or it never went away."
Mm.
And they were absolutely shocked and fearful
Mm.
instantly, having grown up thinking that that wasn't an issue.
Mm.
So I think it's really about what's in people's minds. You're not going to change them, and I think I'm got enough reality to know that pragmatic reality is that you're not going to change people. All you can do is to drive them back underground and create the environment where they can no longer do what they want.
Where it is entirely unacceptable and
Oh,
illegal.
the hate crime stuff, which was working in the 2000s,
Mm.
if you see what I
Yes.
mean.
Yes.
It worked. It definitely did work.
Mm.
Um, but it bred a lot of resentment. And that's the problem. It comes out in the end, resentment. So, don't know what the recipe is for it, to be honest. I'm not, I haven't got all the answers. But
No. No.
so that's what I think about racism as, over the years and how different it is, really.
Do you believe, as I do, but you may feel I'm naive, but do you believe in the idea of sowing seeds among people like that? I don't mean among white allies. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think there was it needs special people to do it. There's this imam in Liverpool who, right in that first kind of, I think it was about day after the Southport murder, wasn't it? And so they destroyed the library,
Mm.
which is actually near. I know that area of Liverpool. I was only in Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. So, and I lived and worked there for 15 years. And this is North Liverpool, which that's what's happened in Liverpool since the migrations in the last 20 years. The rest of Liverpool's got a lot more mixed multicultural feel about it than it did when I was there until
Mm.
96.
Mm.
Anyway, so that's why the mosque's there for a
Yes.
start.
Yes.
And so he didn't he opened his doors and they were all with their placards and their St George's flags. And he said, "Would you like to come in for a cup of tea?"
Yes.
And they looked at him, I think, must have been, "What on earth are you talking about?" But yeah, I'm genuinely, you must be, fed up. Would you like to come in and tell me why you're fed up? So I don't know how many of them it was. Don't know what the numbers were, but yeah, he sat down, made them the, tea, and I don't know what kind of hospitality. Middle Eastern hospitality is usually exceptional. So,
Mm.
and he just listened to them, and as they, gave all their resentment stuff, which is what it was, and he
Yes.
explained what he was trying to do in his mosque and in the local community, and they gave all the examples of how he was working with Anglican priests and you name it really, and then he wasn't intent on driving the white British population to unemployment and poverty, and they kind of thought, "Oh God, why is it they've been telling us these people are like this when they're not?"
When they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they walked away and kind of shook his hand, I think, and he said, "Well, come back," So I think they did go back,
Mm.
and that was the bit you were talking about, exactly what you're talking about.
Mm.
So there was some Anglican, no, some Christian ministers and priests who really joined in this, and it's become, I think, a regular feature of a sort of multi-faith and no-faith community discussion about what can we do to for community cohesion
Mm.
to stop people from, poverty is underpinning for everyone here. So what have we got in common?
Mm.
And they Liverpool's ecumenism, which I'm very proud of because I was part of it for 15 years, shines through then because they had sectarian awful experiences for over a century really.
Mm.
And then David Shepherd and Derek Warlock, the wonderful dynamic duo, as they were called, Anglican and Roman Catholic bishops, led the way to it all changing. And the testimony to their hard work is that it's carried on. Didn't need them to be there. They set up about all the right um, mechanisms to keep
Hmm.
it going. So
Hmm.
just that moment when the imam did that and the church um, clergy got involved straight away is an illustration of it really.
Yes.
Is it, so
Yes.
I kind of that is the hope because that's one of the questions you got. Is there any hope? I
It is.
suppose.
I was just going to move right on to that, which is
Yeah,
how do you, Neil,
yeah.
hold on to hope?
The thing is that it's not for everyone or anyone to be doing that. It is a courageous thing to do. It's a white flag
Yes.
waving football match in Christmas 2014, 1914. It's a real people have to take risks to do it. And a lot
Yes.
of people don't want to take those risks. And I totally understand if they don't really. It's not,
Yeah.
it needs people who are brave to do this. And um, there needs to be almost training for people to become brave to do it.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
So my hope is that the reactions I've seen from the white British social workers who I'm training, who kind of go off, and I've had emails from various people, the ones who've invited me to do the training, and they've said, "Oh, we want to tell you what's going on, Neil, because after your training, I had one from Staffordshire who it was actually a nurse who was in a social work role, which happens these days, and she'd been so inspired. She hadn't even had a discussion. She just heard my 2.5 hours of and the slides and the videos. I hadn't even had a discussion. And she went off and said, "Oh, I've been talking to our trust, and we need to have allyship in our policies and procedures." She said, I'm having a meeting with the board of directors next week." I mean, it
Wonderful.
was it was only a couple of months after I yeah.
Yes.
So that's when I that's what gives me the hope when I
Yeah.
see that um, there are people who have been sleeping as non-racists, not realizing what was in front of them in the what is it? What's the expression when it's right in front of you, but you can't see it? You know that one?
Um,
Hidden in
cognitive.
plain sight. Hidden
Co-
in plain sight.
yes. Yes.
The hidden in plain sight is that I've given them that analysis which helps them to think, oh, it's not quite what it seems. Yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of them having kind of, oh God, I think I'll give up because it's awful. I've given them sort of the tool, the inspiration to say, well, you can change it, and
Yes.
this is how you can do it. So that's why I feel hope because the positive stuff I end up with in the last couple of hours of my talk is it really is meant to um, give people the chance to go off and do something
And clearly
positive.
the tools as well.
Well, that's right, and they've all. I suppose what I'm finding, and the social services is the one that I know because it's the one I've always worked in. NHS is similar, but there are plenty of white British people who have got anti-discriminatory practice that used to be taught from the 80s and 90s, and then good old Michael Gove banned it in 2014. It's come back because the courses in universities have just done it anyway and defied him, right? Which is pretty much what I've been doing, especially in the middle of Boris Johnson and being bloody prime minister. So the business of um, how you move forwards with this is that lots of white British social workers want to do something, and there aren't any structures
Mm.
like the White Allies Network, for example,
Hmm.
to channel things. And what they need is anti-racist forums. That's what they need. So
Yes.
an anti-racist forum is an umbrella where everyone is trying to work on a work streams towards combating, changing, dismantling, decolonizing, all the rest of it.
Yes.
So everyone's working together. It's a solidarity movement, I think. That's what you could call it. So, but an anti-racist forum is the exact description everyone needs. If they've got that, then they can legitimately go forth and do a lot of work, and no one's hopefully going to label them as white saviors. Why are you doing this when you're not suffering racism? So it's the structure they need, and I've
Yes.
totally understood that. So I'm having to explain it to quite a lot of people, and they get it instantly. I explain it, but until I do, they're just so frustrated
Yes.
because they want to do a whole load of stuff. I don't know whether you come into this
I
category,
do.
Angela, or not.
I
I,
absolutely do.
I wondered if you did. You see that
Yes.
Adrian's probably the same. So um, it's learning how to. I'm sure Nova's 12 months must have taught you a lot, but it's learning how to channel stuff
Mm.
so that you can have the impact, but not be the one who kind of is right at the front, standing up with a sort of yes, this is because I did it. If people don't recognise that you did anything, you've probably done the best you could
Yes.
because you've stimulated, encouraged,
Yes.
nurtured,
Yes.
and that's the thing. And so it's so difficult to do that, really.
Well, one of
But I've
Nova's tenets, which I mean, there's so many that I learned both from her course and from her book, The Good Ally. But one of the many things that sticks with me as she's speaking to white people like me, she says, remember when you are talking, and in my case, I'm not educating, but talking to other white people, remember that you were where they are once.
yeah,
So,
that's right.
don't lecture, don't be better
No.
than, don't be, just understand. Remember you were where they were once.
Humility,
And,
humility,
sorry,
humility.
humility.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. And it's one of
yeah,
the many, many things she's taught me. The other one that comes to mind immediately is unconscious bias. And
yeah.
how I had no idea I had it, but working through her course and asking myself the questions, I realized, of course,
Mm,
I did. You know,
everyone's got it. I've got it as well in so many different ways.
but when you start to interrogate it,
It's
then you
very
can't
uncomfortable, isn't it?
very, but
And
extremely positive because then I know what they are and then I can uproot them. It,
yes, or at
before I know
least
what they are, I don't know what I'm dealing with.
no. I mean, Layla Saad's book, I made the mistake of doing it as Audible book. The listening to it, and of
Yes,
course the work stuff isn't there in front of you to get your pen out. But
yes,
I found that she was absolutely take no prisoners, and those of you with mixed heritage, I'm talking to you. So I mean, and I understand where it comes from, but it's very bruising and painful.
yeah, yeah,
So I know about that discomfort,
yes,
and it's really awkward. So that's why I would like to encourage more mixed heritage discussions and spaces for
yes.
people to be able to do that, because that's one thing that I'm pretty sure has not ever really been produced. No
Could
one
you,
has looked at the mixed
do,
heritage
do
space.
you have the facility, the forums? Could you begin that, Neil?
It is virtually impossible to put out a email and say, "Can you gather all the people of mixed heritage? This is my email address. Just tell them to send." I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
There's no avenue to do it, and
Mm,
there never has been.
mm.
Never has been. It's not something which has been looked at enough, and
Yes.
I've always wanted to do something, but haven't been able to really.
What have been the aha moments on your journey?
Yeah, I mean, Helen Morgan's was the biggest aha of all, but
Yes.
I think um, looking at what's happened with PCREF, the Patient Care Race Equality Framework, that was a real aha moment when I saw what Jackie Dyer had managed to bring out and get through to NHS policy and mandatory status. That was a real aha moment, and I mean that is just she deserves an MBE and a Dame both at the same time. I think.
Possibly renamed so they don't include Empire.
Well, yes, but you know what I mean. It's
I do know what you mean.
she,
Recognition.
yeah,
Yes.
because it's been such an amazing tool to be able to talk about with people.
Mm.
Um, and when I say it's mandatory, they can't say, "Oh, well, I'm not interested."
Yeah.
They got no choice, and that is, yeah, it's a big thing, and they will try all they can to wriggle out of it. And I'm waiting for that moment because I'm already one step ahead of them because I know
Mhm.
what they're like. If you see what I mean?
They have
Yeah,
to.
I
Yes.
spent a whole year um, being able to talk to the public health director here, where I live, to train him on what PCRAF was about before it was coming in, because I knew it was. So, and he's been able to be at all the venues and places where the ones who are now trying to do it, and he knew what he was talking about completely. So that's what I mean by preparing the way.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to. It's partly Machiavellian, to be honest with you.
Explain a bit more.
Well, tactics,
Yes.
because they my local trust will want to wipe it out, make it look as though they're doing something whilst not doing anything at all.
Hmm.
Um, and they've got a whole machinery dedicated to doing that. And
Mm.
they've been doing it for 50 years. So I know what they're like. So you just have to be one step ahead of them all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just knowing your organization, and
Mm.
doesn't mean you can do it easily either.
No. No. The final question is, if there was one thing you feel white allies could learn to become more effective in allyship, what would it be?
And I think be courageous and humble at the same time.
Yes.
You
Yes.
covered that one, the humility. And yeah, I've already spoken about how brave you need to be to do this stuff.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, large doses of courage and humility harnessed together, really,
Yes.
um, because the learning process is you need courage to keep going on that one. One of the slides I do is I think it's the 7 A's of allyship, and um, having the appetite, the appetite to, jump off the cliff,
Yeah.
basically, because
Yes.
it is like that, really. It
Yes.
is like that.
Yes,
It's
it
a
is.
jump off a cliff moment, and I recognize it as that
Mm.
because you're kind of thinking, okay, well, this is really complex. There's a whole load of tripwires going on here. What will people think of me? What are they going to do when they do point out things that I might have said? Even if I have said the right thing, they'll still say I said the wrong thing. And, so why bother to do it? So the appetite is actually about courage, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
got to be. It's
Yes.
got to be about courage and dedication, really. Um, and then humility is that, yes, as you said, to not forget your roots. So I suppose it's a bit like the Keanu Reeves and who's the other one who comes to mind? The Senegal football player who used to play for them. Man, what's his name? Oh God, Mane. Sadio Mane. So
Okay.
they never forgot their roots. So huge amounts of money at their disposal, and they just keep giving it away all the time
Mm.
because they were walking where the money goes right now, and they just never forgot.
Mm.
So
Mm.
they're the kind of presidents of humility, I would call them,
But the
because Sadio
combination for white allies of courage and
and
humility.
humility.
Yes.
That's right. Sadio Mane took a role in the Saudi football team, and he could have done more in Europe. And he basically finished his career, but they're paying him even more than he was in Britain and in Germany, and it all goes to pay for a town in Senegal. And I think it's Senegal, yeah.
Mhm.
Everything he finances the entire lot, £70 equivalent per week to every individual. And he bankrolls the whole place.
Gosh.
Yeah, So that's how much he cares about where he came from.
Mm.
So he doesn't buy all these big cars and all the rest of it. He just puts it all there.
Mm.
So that's what I mean by humility.
Yes. Thank you, Neil.